What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Release Valve. I am your host, Sean Hanlon, and one of the main topics of discussion on this podcast is addressing one's mental health. Today's guest is a psychiatrist. He's an author, an educator, and a thought leader in the integration of spirituality and medicine. I am very excited to introduce Dr. Thomas McCormack to the show. Welcome to The Release Valve, Dr. McCormack.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate you having me. It's good to be here.
No, I appreciate you coming on. As we were saying before, more people need to have awareness type conversations. I think mental health is something that at one point or another, just about everybody has struggled in some aspect, and what they really could have used was being able to discuss and release some of the feelings that they have going on inside. And for me, not being comfortable addressing the things that I was feeling or thinking when I was younger, I know that it would have helped me. It would have, I would have been able to get past a lot more things, or with a little more ease if I was able to open up about it. So now that I'm a little bit older and a little more comfortable in my own skin, I am having these type of conversations, and it's doing me wonders. So tell me a little bit about your history. Again, you're a psychiatrist. How did you get started going down that road?
That's a long story. I'll try to shorten it. I wanted to be a physician from a very young age. Even when I remember I was probably 3 or 4 years old. There was an old 1970s television show called Emergency, and I just remember watching it, just loving it. It was action packed, and they would, the role of the physician really resonated with me. And I don't know why, but from that point on, I started telling people I want to be a doctor, and I don't know. It's been a calling, and I was fortunate enough to be blessed with a great education, a great family that provided me a lot of opportunities, and then went to medical school in Atlanta at Emory. And when I went to medical school, my goal at that point in my life was to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. When I was in college, I'd worked a summer at a hospital in Atlanta with a team of cardiothoracic surgeons who were some of the best in the Southeast. And it was really neat, and I really enjoyed it. It's just the thrill of it, and working with somebody's life in the balance. There's a history of heart problems in my family, so I was kind of interested in that from that angle as well. But I really thought that was neat. And as a 21-year-old kid, I was very naive. I had no idea what their lifestyle was like. I had no idea.
Right.
Yeah, I just thought everybody would, you go to medical school and then whatever. I really didn't know that much about it. I was very naive, but I just thought, well, that's what I want to do. What happened was when I got into medical school, and the first couple of years, of course, are mostly book training and that sort of thing. And then the last couple of years, more rotations. As I got into it and did clinical rotations, I found out that the lifestyle wasn't really what I wanted. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to prioritize that. Certainly my profession is important, and it's a calling, but I wanted to have that balance. And I didn't feel like cardiothoracic surgery for me would have afforded that. And so it started to take a little bit of a back seat to other things. In my third year, I did a psychiatry rotation at the VA hospital in Atlanta, and I had no idea what psychiatry was. I had just seen it from television. They were mostly, older guys with fuzzy beards and tweed coats, and just kind of stroking their beard and not saying much. And
Right.
I didn't know much about it. I thought it was a strange field at this time. This was the 1990s, and to my utter surprise, I really enjoyed it. And not only that, I got feedback that, hey, Tom, you're pretty good at this. Have you thought about this? And I thought, no, I have not. And I really didn't want that. I kind of liked it, but I still thought it was strange. It was my first introduction to it. And at the VA hospital, obviously dealing with veterans, and many of them in a hospital setting are very sick. A lot of them have post-traumatic stress disorder, a lot of Vietnam veterans and that sort of thing, a lot of substance use, but really sick people. And, I just I kind of put it in the back seat. As I went further along, looking at something that maybe would incorporate some surgical stuff in it, work with my hands, I started to get interested in dermatology. And I thought, well, that might kind of marry working with my hands, but also the lifestyle that I wanted for me and my family. And so I worked with a dermatologist and did some research in that area. And the guy I was working under at Emory really liked me. And I said, well, back then, I think it is the same way now. You have to be at the top of your class to go into dermatology. It's just a lot of people, it's a good gig. A lot of people want to go into it.
Really?
And I was kind of middle of the pack. I told him, I said, I'm not sure I can get in residency. He said, well, maybe you have to do a year extra, of some kind of extra training. But he said, with my recommendations, I'm positive you can get in. I was like, okay, that's cool. And then I did a rotation in psychiatry in my fourth year. And this was an outpatient rotation, so very different from the inpatient really sick population. This was more in a community setting, but it was a private practice, which is kind of what I wanted to do anyway. And I really liked it, and I started thinking about it seriously at that point. And I remember when I finally decided, after much ado and talking to my family and my girlfriend who became my wife, and a lot of prayer and talking with some advisors at Emory, I decided to go into psychiatry. I told my mentor, who's the dermatologist, that I was going to psychiatry, and he said, Tom, that's the biggest mistake of your life. He said, you will regret this. And I remember thinking, I was I can't remember, 25-year-old or something, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is an attending telling me that I shouldn't do this, and I started to second guess it. But in the end, I really felt a calling to psychiatry. And I just felt like it was a subject that I was interested in. It was something I was kind of naturally good at, I had an aptitude for. And it afforded me the opportunity to really get to know people. And I love people. And I just felt like, dermatology, you might, they have chronic skin conditions maybe, but you might see them every 6 months or a year. You don't really get to know their background and that sort of thing to a great degree. And psychiatry afforded that. And so I took the plunge, and it was not an easy decision. My family did not understand it. My dad, God rest his soul, said to me many times over the years, even after I became a psychiatrist, he's like, "No, what do you do?" He was a dentist, so he worked with his hands, and he would come home and show us like before and after. He'd be real excited, and so he was very, it was very clear what the results were, and he just didn't understand.
Right.
Like, you talk with these people, and then you see them every month, and you'd see him for years, and he just couldn't wrap his head around it. But in the end, they were supportive. They just didn't understand it, I think, at first. But
Sure.
it was a great fit for me, and I haven't looked back. I love it.
That's amazing. That really must have been hard, especially when your mentor is telling you you're making the mistake of your life. And especially when you're pursuing something where, there's a lot of time, energy, effort, and money that goes towards pursuing one of these career paths, and then for somebody like that to say that you're making a mistake, to have your family telling you or questioning you, what are you doing? I can only imagine the weight that put on your shoulders to say, yeah, no, this is what I want to do. But I think it's also a testament to, it's not always about what you're being told, right? It's about where your heart is at and where your head is at, and following your heart and following your dreams in that sense. And it's like one of those, look at you now, So it wasn't the biggest mistake of your life, and maybe that was that big test to see if that's really what you were looking to go after, right?
I think so. I think it was one of many tests I faced along the way, and I'll describe that a little bit later, maybe when we talk about the book. But I definitely think it was. I was a young man, and you're right. You've invested this time and frankly money, but a lot of effort into your medical education. And then when you make a decision, you can change, but it's hard. Because psychiatry residency is at least 4 years. Mine was 6 because I did a couple of fellowships. But most medical specialties are 3-4 years at least. And so when you go down that path, you could go into something and then say, after a couple of years, I'm going to go into something else. But it's really difficult to do that.
Right, right. Kind of having to almost start all the way back over again and
Almost.
start somewhere new. I can only imagine how much pressure that put on you to yeah, really be sure of what you're doing. And it's funny thinking about, your dad. Yeah, he can have pictures of this is what their mouth looked like before, and this is what it looks like now. It's not like you can show a picture of somebody with a frown and then a picture of them with a smile and say, "This is what I did."
Right. Right.
That's
And
funny.
yeah, I think with surgery and with dentistry, a lot of it is more instant gratification, and that's really neat to be able to kind of quickly make a change and see it. In psychiatry, I remember when I was thinking about going into it, one of my psychiatrist mentors at Emory said, "Are you comfortable with seeing people long term and maybe them not getting a lot better?" And I just thought, whoa, that's not why I went into medicine. I went into medicine for people to get better. But he was very wise in stating that, because you have to count that cost before you start, because that is the truth. It's a you got to hang in there with folks, and a lot of times they do have chronic illnesses that while the tools we have are great and they definitely help, it's a journey, it's a process
Right.
to wholeness, and it can take a while, but when they reach the promised land, so to speak, it's so rewarding, and I love celebrating with them. It's cool.
I bet. Yeah, it's not as if there's just this structured guideline of, all right, you do exercises A, B, and C. You follow up with, one, two, three, and then they're all set. They're healed, and there you go. You're right. Some people it may be an easy fix, a minor alteration of how they go about things or their perspective of things. But others, yeah, it could be a lifelong journey for them. And are you willing to go down that journey along with them? That's a lot. So, I mean, with that being said, what are some of the more common issues that you've run into as a psychiatrist?
You mean clinical issues like with my patients?
Yes.
Okay, sure. Yeah, well, I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist and a general adult psychiatrist. So I see, from down to 2 years old up to people in their 90s. So I see a wide
Wow.
range, which is neat. I've been able to see people across the life cycle. It's really given me a better understanding of the human condition, and I think that's just I've been blessed to have that training. But probably nowadays, so I see in kids a lot of disruptive behavior disorders, especially ADHD is
Yep.
become increasingly prevalent,
Yep.
and that's not uncommon. But even in younger folks, a lot of anxiety, surprisingly, a lot of depression, and I see those in adults as well. One of the things that really concerns me nowadays, Sean, is the increasing prevalence of suicidal thoughts and actually completion of suicide. And that's one of the harder aspects of what we do is dealing with folks and trying to walk through the valley with them, and kind of show them the way that, and be encouraging that, hey, you're not alone. We're going to get through this, and trying to bolster their other social supports, as well as obviously coming in frequently and doing therapy and medication management a lot of times in folks that are that severe. But those are some of the common things. Anxiety, I would say, is probably the most prevalent thing I see these days. And
Yeah.
one of the reasons I think is that, if people look around at the circumstances in our culture, in the United States, in the world, it's unsettling, and it's scary. And anxiety, I think, is a normal response to that, but it's definitely increasing in prevalence.
Yeah, absolutely. The fear of the unknown, of what's to come, and how do I handle it when it does come, and yeah, am I alone in this battle when it does arrive? And again, I speaking for myself, growing up, I didn't know what anxiety was. I'd never heard the word before. It wasn't a common known issue, I would say. I was born in the 80s, really grew up in the 90s, and it was, I just felt like I had I would get very nervous about things, and I didn't know why, and I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know how to address it. And again, not knowing what anxiety even was until I got older and learning about it, and it was like, oh, that's what was going on. I was anxious about these things. I didn't know, like I said, what was going on, how to handle it, who I can go to, and my parents were very, very involved in my life. They were there for me. But again, I didn't know how to address what I had going on. I would
Hmm.
just get nervous and scared and shut down and not talk about it, and just went forward in life with that kind of secret fear inside, and yeah, it had a negative effect on a lot of different types of relationships growing up.
Hmm.
And then yeah, you become an adult, and I find out what is this word anxiety, and it's like, oh man, all right, so what do I got to do about this? And for me, one of the main things that I found out through kind of my own trial and errors was I need to talk about what it is that I'm feeling. Just talking about it, addressing it, and just getting it out, it was almost an instant relief for me that it was like, oh, okay, I just need to talk about these things. I need to address that elephant in the room, and and again, like I said before, that was one of the driving factors for starting this podcast, was having conversations with other people, kind of pulling it out of them a little bit, what they had going on, and then noticing a difference in them when we would talk the next time around. I would notice people would look forward to telling me about something that was bothering them. And it's like, all right, there's something to this. There's something to this. We all need to start opening up and talking about these type of things a little bit more.
Hmm. Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
you find that that is a common thing as well, as some people just kind of need to talk about these things, or when it comes to anxiety? I mean, I'm sure you deal with such a wide range, especially going from 2 to 99. There's I'm sure different generations have different kind of patterns that you see. But
Yeah.
do you find that just talking about it is one of the main things that does help?
It helps a lot. I think with anxiety, as with a lot of psychiatric issues, there are a couple of components. There's a cognitive component, right? Like, so your thoughts, your mind, and then there can be a physiologic component along with that, because your body has what we call an autonomic nervous system. That's your fight or flight nervous system. If there's real
Yep.
danger, your heart needs to pound faster and harder, and you need to get oxygenated blood to your skeletal muscles so you can either fight back or flee to save life and limb. Now, when that alarm gets tripped because of your thoughts, then that's kind of physiological components of anxiety. And what we found is that some people, because of biologic predisposition, their alarm gets tripped easier. And these things are wrapped together. Your cognitive, your thoughts, what you're worried about, and that sort of thing. We all have them to varying degrees. But then your alarm system getting triggered, which makes it worse. It just makes you worry. Oh my gosh, I'm having a heart attack, or in extreme cases, it could be a panic attack, for example. And that's usually when these things are causing people difficulty functioning in their life in some major way. It could be socially, it could be occupationally, it could be their education in school, their relationships, and usually when it gets to that level, they seek some help. They start talking to their doctor about it. Oftentimes, primary care docs or gynecologists are on the front lines of this, and a lot of times they'll talk to them briefly, but they tend to be more medically oriented, and they'll a lot of times suggest, why don't you go talk with a therapist, which of course is appropriate, and they may go ahead and initiate something medically. In addition, a lot of times it's pretty rare people go straight to the psychiatrist. We see that at times, but usually they've entered the healthcare treatment system before that, and have had some kind of journey prior to come to see somebody like me.
Right.
And sometimes it's kind of hard. There's still, as you and I talked about before, a bit of a stigma. There's less
Yep.
than there used to be, for sure. But hey, it's hard to come in and bare your soul to somebody you don't know, and talk
Right.
about things that are scary, maybe you don't understand. And so when people have the courage to do that, it can really set the tone. But yeah, talking about it is huge. Just expressing your emotion,
Yep.
understanding it, is a great first start. And what we call cognitive behavioral therapy, right? So there's a cognitive portion of it, hey, let's understand what makes you anxious and nervous. What are your worries? What's behind that? And then the behavioral component is, okay, what can we do about it? And sometimes that's just relaxation, breathing techniques, things of that nature, at least to start. And then there are other things as we go along in therapy.
Sure, right. Now, I know speaking for myself again, there was a time period to where I wanted to be known as somebody that struggled or had struggles in life, and that's it was kind of part of my identity, right? It was something that I used to, not necessarily used to describe myself, but I welcomed other people describing me as such, as somebody that has those type of problems. Do you run into anybody or do you run into people that kind of almost don't want to get better in that sense, that do identify themselves as somebody that has like these type of issues, and you gotta kind of have to work at opening them up in that way, like moving past that and finding a new identity other than somebody that has these things going on?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first things that's really important in treating psychiatric illness is getting the patient to the stage of acceptance, right? When you have a significant illness, psychiatric or medical, it's really important to understand it, but accept it. Okay, this stinks. This is difficult, but I have this. This is the cross that I have to bear. And what am I going to do about it now? What are the proactive steps? So seeking help from a physician, therapist, obviously is a great first step. But you'd be surprised, even when they come to my office, people are still sometimes in stages of denial to varying degrees, right?
Right.
Because when you're sick, you're grieving the loss of your health. And we know that there are stages of grief. Now, nobody's died or anything like that, but still, that's a very significant loss of health and functioning. And because of that, we have to kind of look at the stages of grief. And the last stage is acceptance. And so we try to get patients there as quickly as possible, to explain their illness, what we call psychoeducation. Hey, you have whatever, generalized anxiety disorder, and this is what that means. And hey, but look, there are things we can do about it. Let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. Is this what you'd like to do? And a lot of times they consent, and we get started and kind of show them that there's hope. There's treatment. There's help for this. And once they've accepted it, then there's that encouragement. And a lot of times after just a visit or two, people are a lot more encouraged because they came in thinking, I don't know about this. This is weird. I'm talking to some guy, and they don't know what to expect if they've never seen a psychiatrist or therapist. And to kind of go out armed with that information is a great first step, but acceptance is the key.
Yeah, I bet that was going to be my next question, was how often do you deal with people that are in complete denial of needing help, and or the kind of thought process behind seeing a psychiatrist. Oh, he's just going to prescribe a pill, and I got to start taking this pill to be better, and and also the range of people that want to be prescribed pills. Yeah, go ahead and Dr. Pill, go ahead and give me that, and I'll be fine once I've popped this thing, and that's what I need. So I'm sure, again, the wide range of people that you deal with, it must be difficult at times to really find out, all right, what is going on with this person, and what is it that they actually do need, without them telling me what it is or me having to tell them what it is. And that can be a lot. So I was going to ask.
Americans do want a quick fix for things, and so pills sometimes can offer that for certain maladies. But people are surprised when they come into my office and they expect me to get out the pad and start writing my prescription. And I said, believe it or not, I don't want you on medicine. Now, if it's part of the treatment plan that I think could be helpful for you, we're going to discuss it, but it's up to you, of course. I'm not here to make you take a pill. And they certainly can have benefits, but it's not uncommon that I'll prescribe other things first. If it's a less severe case, for example, we're going to try to do some cognitive behavioral therapy and some other kinds of therapies to see how far that gets. Because sometimes, like you alluded to earlier, that gets them, well, and maybe we don't need medicine. And I like to use what's called the biopsychosocial spiritual approach. And that's looking at the whole person, not just their biology. Okay, you might need a pill for your depression or anxiety or whatnot. But looking at, hey, what's your psychological makeup? How do you cope with things? And what's your social network like? Are you plugged in? Or because a lot of times when people are sick, whether it's physical or mental, they withdraw. They don't feel good. They don't feel like reaching out to people, or they feel a stigma. So that's important too. And then the spiritual component. Where are you in your own spiritual journey? And are you plugged into that and kind of utilizing, trying to reach out to whatever you've identified as your higher power for extra help as well?
No, that's huge. I love that that's a part of how you approach things as well. Because yeah, sometimes it is more than just that physical state or the mental state. Sometimes you need to tap into that higher power, and what that looks like for you is going to be different for everybody. But a lot of times, I love a few of the things that you said. It makes me think of. Are you familiar with Andrew Huberman, the neuroscientist? Yeah, he talks about the 6 pillars of health. Being sleep, sunlight exposure, movement, diet or nutrition, and one of the things that you said, social connection and stress management. How do you handle these things? I think social connection is huge, and again, talking about the things that you have going on. Do you have a safe place or safe places that you can go to address the things that you have going on? I feel like a lot of people that I know, fall into needing one of those 6 things. You need to manage your sleep better. You need to have better coping mechanisms to the things that you have going on. You need to fix your diet. That's a huge thing with a lot of people that don't realize how much that can affect them. Sunlight exposure, movement, moving yourself, doing these things, these kind of basic things in life that, because of how excuse me, how everything is set up for us, society today, and the go with the jobs and stuff like that you kind of lose sight of a lot of those kind of more basic things in life that you need to just kind of make sure you stay on top of, and that in and of itself is going to help with all of these other little things that you're neglecting to take care of.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Those things that Huberman talks about, I agree. Those are foundational, and they seem self-evident. Like, right, I know all this, but
Right.
it's not just cognitive knowledge. Are you doing it though? Right? How is your sleep? And so everybody, I talk about sleep. It's so important, especially people with psychiatric illnesses. Almost every psychiatric illness, if you look up the criteria, there's some disturbance of sleep. It's really, really common. So
Really?
we can fix sleep, but what are your sleep habits? Are you going to bed with your tablet, your iPhone? Are you playing games right up until bedtime? I think some of that, like sunlight, right? We grew up in the 80s, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. I mean, we take it for granted. We went outside and our parents shoved us outside and we played and we rode our bikes without a helmet and all this kind of stuff. And nowadays, there's a lot more electronics and a lot more indoor, and there's more of everything. And I see that in kids especially, right? When I was growing up, sure, we had homework and we had ball practice and stuff, but it's all even to a greater degree than I think when we were raised. And I think that's adding stress to that generation. There just isn't margin built in for our younger generation, but for us as well. But we have the frame of reference of looking back and, wait, it was different before. And they don't. They've grown up with these devices in their hands, and they don't know any differently. Yeah, you need sunlight. You get out, get your vitamin D. You need exercise. Yeah, this is not exercise.
Yeah, right.
Let's go out and play and shoot some hoops, or lift some weights, or jog, or whatever. So yeah, that's part of having a balanced life. And again, it seems self-evident, but you'd be surprised, or maybe not, how many people really fall short in those areas. And trying to educate them that, hey, this is important, and we got to start there. We need to build. If we're building the house, we got to get a firm foundation first. And those things are, like Huberman says, they're key. They're just foundational.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and growing up, we almost didn't realize how important those things were, because that's all we knew. We didn't have technology the way that it's out there now. Didn't have video games the way that they're so accessible to the kids nowadays. And as you said, these kids are just growing up with it a part of their lives. And, not trying to throw shade at any of the parents out there, but it's an easier form of parenting for them to just say, yeah, go turn on the TV or play your video game. I'm busy right now, or I have something that I need to do or deal with or whatever. And those kids, they don't know any better. So yeah, absolutely. Let me jump on there.
Well, not
When
only
I was a
that,
kid.
right. No, I agree with all that. But not only that, I don't think it's always lazy parenting. I agree with you. Let's not throw them under the
Yeah,
bus.
that's what I say. Yeah.
But these things are very reinforcing by design. The way that they work on your brain chemistry, it's not different than other addictions, honestly. And I see a lot of kids where they get so into gaming, for example, that when the parents, or just YouTube and scrolling and that sort of thing, the parents try to take that away. There's this withdrawal, and there's this
Right.
intense, just like if you're taking something away from the alcoholic, they're going to then hide it and sneak it and do these kind of things to get
Right.
their fix. And there's important burgeoning literature about how this technology is, it's not all bad, but it is,
Yep.
it has to be contained. And if it's not, it really does rewire the brain to a certain extent. And if you're doing that at a young age, it's going to be increasingly difficult to change that as they get older, and that's a concern.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely a difficult task to take on nowadays. And as you were saying, when we were growing up, it was just go outside, come back home when the street lights come on, type of thing. And that's how it was. And screen time for us was maybe after dinner. When we're all watching the whatever sitcom, whatever show as a family, it was a
Right.
family event, when we watch TV, as
Right.
opposed to just the everyday, this is what you have going on.
Or
I can.
everybody go into their room now and watching their own screen, right?
Right, right. Yeah, not even having that connection with your own family. And again, getting back to Huberman talking about social connection, it's not even something that you're sharing with other people. Yeah, it's this private thing. And what happens when you take this thing away, that this is what you do with your downtime? Yeah, like you said, it's a withdrawal. And same as an alcoholic, yeah, you're gonna be upset about that. And have some history with alcoholism in my family, and it was tough when it wasn't around for them. And yeah, it's so many different aspects to look at it, and that it's I can only imagine how much harder it is for those today than it was for our parents raising us when we were kids. But
Yeah, it's a tough age, and I think that's a lot of reason why the demand for psychiatric care is really expanded. Even since I've been doing it, just society's changed and our
yeah,
culture's changed, and it is what it is. We're not powerful enough to change that, but I think as parents, especially, we can put boundaries around these things and try
yeah,
to teach our kids to to handle them appropriately. Just as if if you decide to drink alcohol, which I don't think is a great idea, but if you drink responsibly, you're teaching your kids, okay, if you have a glass of wine or two every now and again, or a beer at a football game, and put it down, that's okay, right? If
yep,
you can do that with these devices and such, okay, that's okay. But when you're a child, we need to put these boundaries around it, and we're going to have to enforce that, because it's, I don't know, you let the tiger out of the cage, it'll eat you.
right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, absolutely. Growing up, being of age, I drank for a certain period of time, and it got to a point to where I wasn't able to regulate that relationship with alcohol the way that I should have. And being an adult, I was able to have that realization, and having conversations with my wife that was like, you know what, I don't need this in my life. I don't need this to be happy. I don't need this to have a good time. So I'm not going to do this anymore. And proud and happy to say that it's been a long time since I've had a drink. But for a kid, it's next to impossible to be able to regulate that yourself. It's not like a kid's playing a video game saying, this isn't servicing me the way that it should in life. I'm going to set this game down and go build something, or whatever. So yeah, as parents, we have to be the ones that regulate for them, and that is a tall glass of water to drink. That is a tough one to really put down, because these kids, they don't understand. They just know that this brings me joy and this is what I want to do, and you're taking my joy away from me.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, that's tough.
Being a parent these days is hard. Being a kid is harder. It really is. There's a lot of stress. But yeah, I think putting those boundaries around it is super important. And boundaries aren't bad. They're there to protect us.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as a kid, they don't understand that. And
Right.
it's tough to describe that in a way that a kid will at least accept it if they don't understand it. So earlier you alluded to one of the questions that I was going to ask was, what are the more difficult parts of your profession? And you alluded to, people that will take extreme actions to no longer feel the way that they're feeling, right? So what are the more rewarding aspects of your job and your profession and what you do?
Yeah, it's like my professor who warned me, are you okay with people not getting better, at least not immediately? That's been borne out in my practice, that you get in there with patients and you hang with them, and you walk through the valley with them, and you keep trying to, I don't know, preach is a little bit of a strong word, but I think it's appropriate that we walk through the valley. There is an end to this valley, right? Your suffering will end, and I don't know when. I sure hope it's soon. But we're gonna walk through it, and we're in it together. And you need community too, right? We talked about social support. We talked about the pillars that Huberman talked about, being balanced in life, right? So that means, when we're thinking about biopsychosocial, spiritual, bio, like you said, sleep. Okay, that's a biological thing. Your diet, exercise, getting sunlight. I mean, all those things you can, to some degree, control whether or not you get those. And you'd be surprised how many people that they're like, wow, I'm not doing that. And then psychologically, sometimes people have issues from trauma or their own upbringing. Their things that have happened to them that make them see the world in a way that we need to kind of help them reframe, and that can take some time, obviously. But the social aspects, are they plugged in? And then the spiritual aspects. So I really like looking at this thing holistically and trying to help people identify what areas do you specifically need to work on. Because for some people, like, for example, their anxiety is very biological. And sometimes it is surprising to me, but sometimes they really respond great just to a medicine. And, we almost always suggest therapy along with it, but every now and again somebody takes their medicine, rides up into the sunset, and they're like totally better. Now that's not the norm, right? But some people do have more of a biological issue. Most people have some biological issue. There's psychological too, and then I think that the thing that's really a passion of mine is the spiritual aspect of this has been really neglected by modern medicine, and that's one thing that I'm passionate about. Not only helping my patients identify and kind of what, like we talked about earlier, what is your spiritual journey? What is your higher power? Have you taken the time and the effort to figure that out? And if you do that and you really search and you're like, there is no God or whatever, okay, I respect that. I'm not going to impose my personal beliefs on you. I've done, my own work, and I have my own belief system. And if they ask about it, I'm free to tell them, but I certainly don't impose that on folks. But I encourage them to do that hard work to find out what do you believe, and that takes effort. And some people just kind of roll through life and they haven't taken the time and the effort to do that, and it's really important. So I find that when people get on that journey, it helps tremendously. It just puts everything in perspective. Hey, life is hard. Nobody gets a free pass. Everybody, has difficulties. And, your worldview and how you see the world and your place in it, and if there is a higher power, and what's your relation to that, makes a big difference in how you see your illness.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that can also help with that loneliness feeling as well. If you feel like that there is a higher power, there is somebody looking after you, and you're never truly alone in that regard.
Right.
Sometimes that can kind of put a lot of those feelings at ease.
Yes.
Some people it can cause more anxiety, thinking that, oh, I gotta act right, I gotta somebody's watching me at all times. I can I gotta make sure I'm staying on top of my game. But I found, yeah, the more people that explore that side of themselves, because you're right, so many people just kind of, and especially in this day and age, it's not as common to be in touch with that side of yourself. And a lot of people, yeah, are just going through the motions, and not really having that self-assessment of, what they have going on. What do I believe, and what do I not believe? And it, I think that's definitely an essential part of growth, and figuring out who you are, and why you're here, and what it is that you're here, what it is that you're here to do while you're here.
Mhm.
So
I think it's
that's
one of the
huge.
most important and fundamental questions of life. And
Mm.
so we ought to invest time and effort in that. And faith is something that I advise my patients, that it's not something you can inherit. You can't say, well, I was raised whatever. Okay, that's great. I mean, your family of origin had a certain faith, perhaps, but you have to come to a point where you have to have your own experience with the transcendent, and
Right.
know that this is the truth as I've seen it, or not. And
Right.
you have to own it yourself. Go on your own journey.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So when you first were becoming a psychiatrist, and going down this path of medicine, and in your career, were you a part of somebody else's practice, and then you decided to branch off and start your own, or how did that come to be that you were able to start your own practice in this?
Yeah, I knew from early on that I wanted to have my own practice. My dad had his own dental practice, and I liked the freedom that afforded, but also the ability, increasingly in medicine, and this started when I was in medical school. There's more and more oversight, right, with managed care. Doctors used to be able to prescribe treatments, and insurance would say, oh, okay. And increasingly, as it became more managed, they question what we do. Like, I don't know about that medicine. And honestly, obviously, it comes down to the price of it. A lot of
The
times, nobody will
incentive.
say that. That's a dirty little secret. But then they make you get it authorized. And then they even authorize the number of visits. Like, you have to say, oh, my patient is suicidal and sick. He or she needs to come, every 2 or 4 weeks, and they don't like that. And so it's just a fight, and there's enough of that in medicine. And I just wanted the freedom to be able to practice as much as I can, with autonomy. And I thought, if I join a practice, I'm not going to have that. There's a possibility that they might, say, Tom, you need to practice in this way, or you need to see this many patients, or you need to, generate this amount of income for the practice. And that didn't appeal to me. My number one concern in going to medicine was my patients, and I'm always going to, give them the time and the effort that's required for them to get better.
Yeah, because the reason why I asked is because, yeah, being able to have that holistic approach, and allow people to explore the spiritual side of themselves. You may not get that freedom if you're working for somebody else, and this is how we do it here. They come in with this problem, you give them a pill, or they come here and you send them
That's
off
right.
over there, type of thing. So yeah,
That's
I
ex-
would imagine it must feel so much better to be able to approach it the way that it really aligns with who you are as a person.
Yeah, so the practice is a natural extension of me and my core beliefs, and what I found is that I wanted to have a multidisciplinary practice where I had other providers, and we could provide a lot of different psychiatric, treatments under one roof. And so being able to set that vision as the founder of the practice, and recruit people who share a similar vision is fantastic. And it's taken a number of years to get there, but we're
Sure.
just blessed with in our practice in Athens, Georgia, a great providers who really are all on the same page about what we need to do to help patients, and it's just fun to see the victories as we go through time and with patients. But some days are hard. Some days are real hard.
I bet. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, trying to find out, who's a right fit and who falls in line with our core beliefs, and this person's really good in this area, but they're kind of shutting down this aspect of what we do here too. So that's difficult, and I can imagine it took quite a bit of time to really get to that point.
It did.
So as I said earlier, one of the titles that I described you as was author. And I believe you have a book coming out soon. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, my book is called Hidden Medicine, The Unseen War on Your Health and the Spiritual Prescription for Healing That Could Transform Healthcare. And it's a book that I've really been in the process of I haven't written it, but it's been in my mind for many, many years. And I feel like now is the time is right. It was really written, I believe, for a time such as this, and it involves trying to have spirituality again being infused back into medicine. It wasn't always this way. Really, in modern medicine, spirituality is taking a backseat as we've become more biologically oriented, and with advanced technology and medical treatments and science, and that's understandable to some degree. But medicine wasn't always like that. Early on, the spiritual aspects of it were self-evident. Even Freud, said that everybody knows that mankind has a spirit. It was up to me to kind of show them that they have psychological issues as well. I'm paraphrasing them, of course, but the point is, at one point in medicine, it was self-evident that there's a spiritual component, and that's really been abrogated to the back seat, and I wanted to bring that more to the forefront.
Now, what did you always know that you wanted to write a book, or was that something that as you were going along, you really were just like, I think a lot of people would benefit reading about this?
Yeah, I kind of had it in the back of my mind. I haven't written anything since college. I mean, in med school, you don't really write much, honestly. I was a pretty good English student, and my mom was a former English teacher and stuff. And so, I thought, well, maybe I could write at some point. It was in the back of my mind, but it didn't really become a concrete thing, honestly, until around the time of the pandemic. I had more time, obviously, with the world shut down, including medical practice to some degree. And also around that time, went through some of my own spiritual but also health issues that made me kind of stop. And not only the pandemic, but that too made me stop and kind of assess, hey, as a middle-aged guy, I need to take care of myself. I'm preaching these things to my patient. I want to make sure that I'm not being hypocritical. I want to make sure that I'm practicing what I preach. And I had to take a hard look at myself and make some big changes. And that was kind of the genesis of these 12 steps that I came up with as far as the spiritual component, because these are things that I worked on myself and found helpful in my own healing journey. And now, unfortunately, I have prostate cancer. And so I'm again going back through the steps that are in the book, because I want to make sure that I have a firm spiritual foundation. Obviously, I'm also seeking medical treatment, as far as probably surgery and maybe radiation treatment as well. But I want to look at this holistically, to get the best possible outcome. Same things that I would want for my own patients.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Oh man, I'm terribly sorry to hear that, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck when it comes to that journey. I can only imagine what you're going through, but I applaud you for even going back, one, sharing with others and wanting to share with others things that have helped you along your way. And, this is really what, I mean, I guess in your profession, what it's really about is wanting to help other people and, being able to say, hey, this is what I looked at, this is what I did, these are the steps that I took, and I really feel that others will benefit from it as well. And then, falling back into it when you're in the state that you're in, I think that's huge. So when does this book come out?
It comes out October 28th. And
October 28th. Okay.
It's available for pre-sale on Amazon right now. So for folks that are interested, but
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm hoping it'll help a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I bet it will. I know it will, actually. Just talking with you now and seeing hearing about your approach to things and where your heart is at and where your mind is at when you do what you do, I know that others will benefit from it. And I'm looking forward to it. I will absolutely grab a copy myself. So something that you had said earlier about, not necessarily just work, but work and home life balance. It's so important in this day and age. I mean, it's always been important, but I feel like it's something that a lot of people lose touch in. They have their job and they have their responsibilities, and they just gotta do that thing, and that in and of itself almost becomes part of their identity. Is I'm the person that does these things. I'm the mom. I have to do this for the kids. I'm the the provider. I'm the supporter. Whatever it is, I have to do this. I have to do this. So it's so important. I feel that, and it's something that is neglected too often, is having that balance for ourselves and finding out other things that we like to do, that isn't just part of our duty, part of our job. So what are some of the things that you do to release your built up pressures, and what do you do for yourself?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think, like you said, being well-rounded, to step back. It takes intentionality. You have to look. We're all given the same amount of time, so you have to look at your schedule and look at your responsibilities, and then try to budget that time accordingly, and rank them in order of priority. Right? In my life, my priorities are God, wife, children, work, and then friends after that, probably. Right? And I don't always follow that, but that's the template that I've decided is the most important. So for me, the foundation that helps me, that release valve, as you're talking about, is that spiritual foundation. And I'm a believer in Jesus, and reading the Bible and being involved with church are things that are very edifying for me. And just I find that when I'm in touch with my higher power, he helps me find that balance, but also he carries a lot of the burdens so that I don't have to. And that's been really helpful. But I have hobbies as well. Obviously, writing has become one of them. I hope to be able to write more as I go forward. But also, I love spending time with my family, and I love the outdoors, and especially water. We have a pool. I love to go to the ocean. I love hunting shark teeth. I scuba dive, and so I dive for big megalodon teeth, and sometimes just to get things underwater. Yeah, that's a passion of mine. So those are some things I like to blow off steam. I'm trying to get back into exercise, especially with my health concerns. I've been convicted that I need to do that, and I always feel better when I exercise. But just like everybody else, I don't do it as often as I should. As a doctor,
Right.
I'm convicted that I need to be better about that.
That is, for whatever reason, if it wasn't something that you instilled in as part of your daily routine at a young age, it's so hard to get that ball rolling and stay and keep it rolling once you do.
And the older you get, it's harder.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I know. I've fallen victim to it myself. That I'll have a good week, or even a good day, and then like, all right, that was good for me, for now, and then some time goes by and I would get up in the morning and I'm a little more stiff. It's like, oh man, I gotta get back on this. And I've noticed that my recovery time during certain things isn't the same that it used to be. So I gotta stay on top of it. It really is hard. But
Right.
man, scuba diving and shark tooth hunting, that is really cool. When did that get started for you?
Oh man, I've been shark tooth hunting since I was a kid. I guess
That's awesome.
we'd go to the beach and went to some places where they had lots of shark teeth, and I guess my dad got me into that. So just walking up and down the beach looking for teeth on the shore, and I have thousands, and I actually make displays with them and stuff. I've made a couple for my kids, and I still got tons at home. I need to, in my spare time, make one for my office because I've got some really good ones. I need to
Oh man, that's
glue
cool.
on the board and kind of put in a frame like I've done for my kids. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. No, I hope you do. I think that's so cool. And having a hobby, especially one that you had when you were a kid, something, something that you shared with your father, and then you grow up and you share it with your kids. Like, I think that's so important. And that's another thing that has gotten lost over time, I feel like, is having that time that you spend with your family doing things, and especially the nostalgia feel that you get when you do something that you did as a kid, and now you're doing it with your kids, and then
Yeah.
the possibility of them doing it with their kids going on and on. It's I love it. That
That's
is really,
exactly
really
right
cool.
because I remember the times where I'd walk up and down the beach with my dad and my brother usually, and just times where everybody else was away and we could fellowship and we'd be hunting teeth. So we'd be
Yep.
looking for teeth, but we'd also be spending quality time together and getting some exercise. And
Right.
some of the times I look back where I was able to do it with my kids, especially when they were young, really are precious to me. So yeah, I hope maybe someday if they have their own kids, they'll carry that on.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love it. That's so cool. I mean, again, Dr. McCormack, thank you so much for coming on here and discussing what I feel is one of the biggest issues out there today. Addressing one's mental health, and especially like you said, in this country, I can only speak because I'm from this country. I've always lived here, so it is definitely a major issue, and not enough people are addressing their mental health, and really having people like you that are out there, not only having the conversations, but are pursuing careers in helping people along the way with their mental health. You're not just, excuse me, you're not just helping people change their lives. In a lot of ways, you're saving their lives. And again, I thank you so much for the work that you do. More people need to get more involved in these type of things. And as you said before, the stigma behind it, I feel like, is getting better. But that is definitely due to having people out there like yourself. So again, thank you for everything that you do.
Well, thank you for your kind words. I really enjoyed talking with you today and appreciate the opportunity.
No, again, thank you so much for coming on. For those that are looking to get more into what you have going on, follow your journey a little bit more, why don't you let people know your social media handles and your website?
Yeah, my website is hidden-medicine.com. And then I'm on Instagram and let's see, TikTok and X and let's see what I'm not good at social media.
There's so many.
Yeah, there are, and if you look up hidden medicine, I think most of them are at hidden medicine or something. I don't know the exact tagline, but I'm pretty easy to find, and or if you type in Dr. McCormack, it might come up too. But yeah, those are ways to follow me.
Awesome. And for those listening, be on the lookout for Hidden Medicine, the unseen war on your health and the spiritual prescription for healing that could transform your healthcare, coming out late October. I'm excited about that as well, and good luck on that, and good luck on your journey. Again, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next time.